Let's jump straight into it. Number 1. Breaking on the wheel. This punishment was designed to take time and make sure everyone noticed. For centuries in parts of Europe, breaking on the wheel was reserved for crimes considered especially offensive to authority: murder, treason, rebellion. The goal was not efficiency, the goal was demonstration. The condemned was taken to a public square and tied to a large wooden wheel or laid across a frame beneath it. Crowds gathered early. Vendors showed up. This was not treated as a private matter. An executioner used a heavy iron bar or mallet. The strikes followed a pattern: limbs first, arms, then legs. The intent was to disable without killing. Bones were shattered deliberately but carefully, avoiding vital areas as long as possible. Afterward, the broken body was woven through the spokes of the wheel and raised on a pole. Death did not always come immediately. Exposure, shock, or internal injuries eventually ended it. Authorities believed the slowness made the lesson stronger. Criminal justice was meant to be seen, remembered, and feared. Over time, public reactions changed. Crowds became uncomfortable. Some executions dragged on longer than expected. Others ended too quickly, ruining the spectacle. Eventually, even governments decided this was too much effort for too little control. The wheel disappeared, but the message lingered. Number 2, Lingqi. This method relied on precision and patience. Lingqi, often translated as death by 1,000 cuts, was used in imperial China for crimes like treason and severe disobedience. It was highly ritualized and tightly controlled. Despite the name, the goal was not to inflict endless wounds. The number varied. The cuts were small, spaced out, and carefully placed. Executioners were trained to avoid immediate death while maintaining order. The punishment carried symbolic weight. Lingqi was meant to destroy both the body and the person's reputation. It was believed to affect the afterlife, making it as much a moral sentence as a physical one. Crowds watched quietly. This was not chaotic violence. It was formal, slow, and unsettlingly calm. Over time, discomfort grew even among officials. Records show debates about whether the punishment reflected poorly on the state. As China modernized, Lingqi became a liability. It was officially abolished in the early 20th century. The practice ended not because it failed, but because it said too much about the system that used it. Number 3, hanging, drawing, and quartering. This was not one punishment, it was several in sequence. In medieval England, this sentence was reserved for high treason. The crime was seen as an attack on the state itself, and the punishment reflected that belief. The condemned was first drawn to the execution site, meaning dragged through the streets behind a cart. This ensured maximum visibility. They were then hanged, but not until death, just long enough to lose strength. After that came the rest of the sentence, carried out publicly and deliberately. The body was divided, and the remains were displayed in different locations as warnings. This punishment was about fragmentation. The person was removed not just from life, but from history, pieces placed across the kingdom as reminders. Over time, the brutality became counterproductive. Sympathy grew for the condemned. Crowds reacted badly. Executions turned chaotic. By the 18th century, parts of the sentence were quietly dropped or shortened. Eventually, it vanished entirely, not because it wasn't effective, but because it was too effective in the wrong way. Number 4, impalement. This method was used to erase resistance. Impalement appeared across multiple cultures, but became infamous in Eastern Europe during periods of invasion and rebellion. It required little technology and sent a clear message. The condemned was placed on a sharpened stake positioned vertically. The process was slow by design. Gravity did most of the work over time. Victims were often left in place afterward. Rows of stakes lined roads or city entrances. The goal was deterrence through visibility. Travelers saw it before they reached the city. Enemies reconsidered attacking. Locals were reminded who held power. This punishment relied on fear rather than law. It worked best where authority was unstable and violence needed to speak loudly. As centralized states formed, impalement became less useful. It created terror but not loyalty. It invited retaliation rather than obedience. Eventually, rulers abandoned it in favor of methods that ended faster and caused fewer problems afterward. Fear has limits. Number 5, the guillotine. This one was meant to be humane. During the French Revolution, reformers wanted a method of execution that was fast, equal, and predictable. The guillotine was designed to remove suffering and social distinction. Everyone died the same way. At first, it was praised. The device worked efficiently. Executions were quick. The crowd barely had time to react. Then executions increased. Political enemies, former allies, ordinary citizens. The machine became a symbol not of fairness, but of excess. The efficiency that made it appealing also made it terrifying. Death became routine. Lists grew longer. Crowds grew quieter. By the time the execution slowed, the damage was done. The guillotine did exactly what it was built to do. History just didn't like the results. That's enough history for one video.